Well, better late than never. This one I've been sitting on for quite a while. I really didn't know what to say about this, so I guess let's just dive in. The Shadow Theory by Camelot. So Camelot is gothic metal, kind of a little bit on the progressive side. They really caught my attention with their two albums that came out in the mid-2000s of The Dark Halo, as well as The Ghost Opera. I know that they got their start back in the 90s, like 1995 with their first couple of releases, but in The Ghost Opera I really liked. I liked how gothic it was, how dark it was, how not quite over the top, but very like melodramatic it was, and I really enjoyed that kind of presentation of metal. Like, we hadn't really seen a whole lot of that gothic metal presentation outside of like Nightwish or, you know, Apocalyptica, by infusing that kind of a dark gothic approach. And the albums they've put out since The Ghost Opera have, for me, been kind of lukewarm. And unfortunately, the same can be said, and even more so, with this latest release of The Shadow Theory, which is part of the reason why it took me so long to really get into a review, because, you know, I'd listen to this guy, and there's about an hour's worth of music on it, but I never really felt all that connected. Like, there wasn't that oomph that I was really hoping for from these bands. I mean, the vocals from Tommy Karavik is still outstanding. Like, the guy has amazing star power when it comes to the vocalizations. Like, he's never really offbeat or off kilter. Like, his singing's always engaging and always kind of in the forefront, but he didn't really have those sweeping soundscapes that he has had in the past. And the guitar work from Thomas Youngblood is still very well put together and very well orchestrated, but there wasn't that like very memorable moments within the guitar work. The drums are very serviceable from Casey. He's still kind of doing his thing. And finally, Oliver within the keyboards is, you know, he's still adding padding, but he's not really in the forefront, which is a little bit of a shame. Now, some of the individual songs, obviously the first one of The Mission opens the album up very well. That was what I was really hoping for with the band. You know, it's a very, again, gothic approach. There's very symphonic movements. It reminds me kind of some of the movements that we've heard past in the discography of theirs, and it opens up pretty well within the second track of The Phantom Divine, or The Shadow Empire, but at this point I started to realize that we are getting a lot of the more of the same. We're finding that the band has kind of put themselves into this very safe box, and it almost feels like they're, I don't want to say they're afraid of trying new things, but it does kind of feel that way, especially this far into their career. I'm not hearing a whole lot of new things that haven't already been explored or tried. And it wasn't until probably about Amnesiac, the fourth track, where I felt some stay power within the song itself. Like, when we get into that chorus where he's like, Amnesiac, I'm like, okay, we're getting some stay power. We've got something to hold on to. But why did it take 4 songs before we got to that point? I mean, mentioning guitar works, there are still some pretty good guitar licks on a number of these tracks. The next song, Of Burns to Embrace, it has a really nice kind of a shredding moment on there. It never really reaches a great standing point on it. I will say I do enjoy how the band took a step back in the 6th track of The Twilight Hours, and they brought in the female vocalist. Now, I know that they've got 2 female vocalists. They've got Lauren Hart and Jennifer Harbin, and I'm not quite sure which one is featured on this. I know that it probably says on the sleeve, but whichever one is singing in The Twilight Hours, she does a very good job of harmonizing with Tommy. And the fact that she's able to harmonize with him in such an extent, I thought was really great. Like, the two present a really great duo in this particular track. Unfortunately, the track itself isn't all that memorable, though. Now, I will applaud the band for really using that stepping stone of In the Twilight Hours to bring us into Kevlar Skin, but it does start off pretty strong with Casey on the drums really like filling us in and getting us through. But again, once the song starts off, it's not a whole lot that goes on. But once the song gets in, I do like that midpoint where we've got that little bit of a chugging to guitars where it's like like, that has a really meaty approach, and I kind of wish that there was a little bit more of that within the album. But you know, we're practically halfway through, and now we're getting some kind of meaty moments. Now, within the 10th song of Stories Unheard, now this is why I come to Camelot, because that's where I'm feeling the gothic sense. Like, there were, in the beginning parts of the songs leading up to that from Kevlar Skin, like Static and Mindfall Remedy, these guys are right. They do have kind of that gothic approach with the grander sounds within the keyboards and the synthesizers, but Stories Unheard has that blending of the melodramatic, somber approach with more of that gothic influence, and I feel like this one's one of the highlights of the tracks. Probably the funnest, I was almost now the most fun track on here, Vespertine, I think that's how you pronounce it, Vespertine, My Crimson Bride. This one was a lot of fun. This track has a lot of fun. This one's probably my favorite track off of it. It starts off really hard-hitting, very meaty, and it never really lets up at that point. And so that's one of the reasons why I love Camelot. And that guitar solo at the end, very well done, very well executed. And it feels like it finally fits this track instead of just being another, you know, overblown guitar solo. And the last two tracks, The Proud and the Broken, as well as Ministry, Shadow Key. These guys are alright, and it's interesting because when Ministry, the Shadow Key, ends, I thought that they were going to continue because it doesn't really feel like a closing track, it just feels like it's there. And it's a little bit of a shame. I know I always say that, but it's a little bit of a shame that we don't have this like real finale, because that's one of the things that I like about a lot of the gothic metal, is that there's always this impending ending around the corner, and so when you don't really have that capped off, I'm kind of feeling a little let down. So overall, you should probably get a sense of how I'm feeling about this album. This one, it follows the trend of Camelot's within the past couple of years, within this own decade. I'm not feeling all that warm towards it. I would honestly have to say skip this one. If you're a Camelot fan, by this point, you've probably already heard it. I would say if you're new to Camelot, not necessarily avoid this album, but seek out others first. Like, go to the Black Halo, go to Ghost Opera. Those guys are the ones that you want to really dig into first before coming to this one, where you're kind of seeing not necessarily their decline, but just where they've shown a little bit brighter first. So that's about it for the Shadow Theory from Camelot. What did you guys think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought, let me know by commenting down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.